So just to jump back into it very briefly, because there's a lot to cover, and I sort of miscalculated, I actually miscalculated. And I thought that there were 8 weeks until Chanukah, but there are 8 weeks including the Sunday of Chanukah, which is all just as well. So we'll have the final shiur, although some of the chaver might not be here, people have things going on. We'll still give the shiur, it'll be on Zoom, so if anybody wants to join live, they can. But it will be recorded, and it's good for a Chanukah-oriented series to be dafka 8 shiur, and that way if people want to listen, next year on Chanukah, you can listen to one shiur a night. And just in general, I thought it was a beautiful thing, and we have so much more material to get to. We'll almost definitely not cover all the material between this week and next week, but we're going to do our very best. There's still a ton to get to, and all b'siyata d'shmai with Hashem's help, and tremendous gratitude to each and every one of you for taking your precious time and for coming and learning with me. It's so deeply appreciated, so thank you. Last week, we were learning about the machlokas between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel as it relates to what is considered mahadrin min mahadrin, what's considered the ultimate, utmost level of being able to light Chanukah neiros in the most advantageous and beautiful way. Beis Shammai is of the opinion that we begin with all 8 candles lit, and then each subsequent night we take one away. Beis Hillel, which we paskin like, of course, is of the opinion that we begin with 1, and then each night we're adding a little bit more. And we wanted to know, what's the depth of that? Thank you so much. I'm going to make a bracha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehakol nihiyeh b'dvarei. So using the symbol that we've been learning about all the weeks up until now, is our seventh week already learning together. So this is a lot, 7 hours, Baruch Hashem, 6 hours of limud. So we were learning that the symbol of the light is the light of faith. The light of faith that's embodied in the tzaddikim, who are here to help us, if they're doing their job properly, and if we can seek out the true tzaddikim, to help us deepen our experience of faith. And that's what the pasuk says, Or Zarua la tzaddik, that tzaddik is connected to light, the light of the Beis Hamikdash, that original menorah that lit up the world with the light of faith and the connection to Hashem, the light of prophecy that came forth from the Kodesh HaKodashim between the 2 kruvim. That prophecy is like we said, the end of the road of faith. Ultimately, we refine our sense of imagination, our koach hadimyon, going back to the very first year, right? A little bit by little bit, each and every subsequent experience of the pathway of the tzaddikim, thanks for joining us, brings us closer and closer and closer to living in a world where God is not a concept somewhere up there, but the whole entire earth is saturated with His glory. Maloi chol haaretz kavoday. That's ultimately the goal and the aim of all of halacha, of all the mitzvahs of everything, is that. And that's what the light represents, dancing on the Chanukah menorah. And we learned that it's specifically the greatest, strongest spiritual light that's able to illuminate the darkest pit, the darkest place, just like it is in physicality. But it's not just like it is in physicality. The reason that that's true in the physical, natural world is because that's true in the spiritual, conceptual world. The spiritual, conceptual world being the code, the back-end code, right, that when it's rendered, so to speak, into this world, it becomes everything that we see around us. And so that's why, because in the spiritual realm, in order to reach the darkest pockets of godlessness, right, so to speak, in the place where it's like a God-forsaken experience of a spiritual failure or a difficulty or confusion or doubt or anything a person's going through in their life, and we go through a lot, we need the deepest spiritual light. So that's why in physicality, in order to shine a light down to the darkest pit, you need a floodlight. A little lighter is not going to do. You need a torch. You need something that's able to reach, that's able to shine down to that place. And we said, well, if the light of Chanukah is the light of Emunah, and it's not just any light of Emunah, but we're learning it is the light of faith that's channeled through the teachings of the tzaddikim that are enabling us to refine our perspectives, like absolutely change the way that we look at the world, change the way that we look at ourselves, change the way that we look at Jewish identity, change the way that we look at Jewish history, but in a very real way, like reorient our basic categories of functionality. And that's what it's supposed to do. We shouldn't settle. We want to constantly be changing, evolving, moving, growing. Thank you so much. It's okay. Okay. We didn't do much. I'm just doing a bit of a review. So says Reb Nassim, well, if that's the light that's shining on the menorah, this light of faith on that madrega, on that level, so that must be why we're able, specifically on Chanukah, to light the menorah in a place, namely low down to the ground, under 10 tfachim, where the Gemara in Sukkah tells us the Shechina never descends to that place. And that's specifically there where we're lighting the Chanukah menorah, because that is emblematic, right? It's an indicator as to the greatness of the light that we're talking about. The intensity of the light is so deep that it's able to be lit over there. And that's also why Reb Nosson said the days of Chanukah are not days of Chag, like a Yontiv or a Shabbos. They're regular days. People can go to work, happens to be the break now, people are off, whatever. But it's Chol, right? It's essentially a weekday. Says Reb Nosson, it's specifically on this day that's mundane that the greatest, deepest light is able to reach to that place, and it doesn't change the day. It's able to shine down into the place of chol, into the place of mundanity, deep down to the ground, low down to the ground. Yeah.
Possibly this year is even lower than a normal day because Katzmach and New Year.
You have all of it. Mamish, to light up what could arguably be, from both the religious and secular sense, some of the darkest times. Right, some of the least conscious times, right, in both ways, unbelievable, and that's Chanukah. So we have to have that kavanah as well, right? So mamish, the highest light that's shining down to the lowest place. So then we spoke about Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, and we said that both Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel must obviously agree that every subsequent day of Chanukah, the miracle got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, right? Meaning there's a spiritual light that's deepening as Chanukah goes on, because what a nace, right? If oil that was supposed to last for one day lasts for 2 days, so then, no, it's a miracle, it's awesome, right? But 3 days, it's even more surprising, more shocking. 4 days, 5 days, 6 days, and so on. The miracle deepens. That means that the revelation of divinity is deeper and stronger and more intense every single day. And here is their machlokus. Beis Shammai holds that the deeper the spiritual light, the more we have to conceal it. The more it's only fitting for the elite. And it's not democratized, allowed for the masses to be able to connect to it. We have to keep it for the great tzaddikim. The greater the light, the greater the tzaddik. And those tzaddikim have to hold it back for themselves. And Beis Hillel, who we paskin like, says no, on the contrary. The greater the spiritual light that we're dealing with, the greater the tzaddik, the more that tzaddik needs to use these lights as a tool to be able to reach the most distant people. And like Rav Nosson says, we have to put it in vessels. It has to be presented properly. You can't just flood people with Kabbalah. You have to clothe it, and you have to bring it down in such a way where it is relatable, where it is relevant, even to the simple folk. And that's exactly what the Baal Shem Tov did. He took the teachings of the Arizal, which is straight Kabbalah, that you open up an Eitz Chaim, it'll make your head spin, and even then, it's like a dreidel will fall on nun, so we don't get anything almost out of the Arizal from the standpoint of like, okay, but what does it tell me about my relationship with my family? What does it tell me about my work day and this frustration and that frustration and the world around me and my life and so on? And the Baal Shem Tov took the teachings of the Arizal, which were themselves a decoding, in a certain sense, of the secrets of the Zohar, and he brought it down into our lives, where every single Jew can access them. And that light was refracted through Breslev, through Chabad, through Sfas Emes and Ger, through Ishbitz, and many other Naharo Pashta, each river that's spread off from that main ocean of the Baal Shem Tov's teachings, intend to take the deepest spiritual lights that were revealed in the Zohar and then decoded by the Ari, and utilize them to shine a light of God's presence, God's love, God's care, God's concern into the heart of even the simplest people. That's the Shita of Hillel. That's what we're learning, right? It's mamish okay. Seriously, I have water, thank you. Right? Going to make me more uncomfortable if you keep on running around. Okay. It's okay. It's fine. Shkayach, right?
So I changed the code. So.
Thank you so much. I deeply appreciate it. I really do. Thank you. This is squarely in the Beis Medrash of Hillel. This is Hillel's Shita. We take Kabbalah, we take the deepest secrets of the Torah, and we find a way to bring them down into the world where they and they alone can reach the furthest. The furthest. And so even though on the surface it doesn't seem like these things seem very advanced, well, it depends what you're talking about. If you're talking about education, in a Charami, you want to do Aleph Beis first, and the Chumash, and the Mishnayos, and the Gemara, and then Halacha, and so on, until you get to a point where But if you're talking about oxygen, if you're talking about like a person needs a gas mask, so then it's not a question of going in order. It's on the contrary, this becomes the most basic. These teachings become the most basic because you have to save a person's life. And if you're not utilizing the deepest revelation, so then it's very difficult to reach people. But if you can zap them, but in this holy way, with these kinds of perspectives and help a person really shift. It's not a Mishnah Brura, this. You're not going to find it in Hilchos Netilas Yadayim. Now, if you know how to learn Pnimius, you can find it in Hilchos Netilas Yadayim. But it's not there in the text in Kitzur Shulchan Aruch and Gemara Bava Metzia and Lava Nittik Laseh. This is not, and to some, this is the basics. But from the Baal Shem Tov's perspective, no, the basics is letting a Jew know that wherever you go in life, wherever you fall in life, Hashem is there first. You fall into the lap of Hashem. Without getting now into all the details of how the Arizal explains the encoding of divinity through every single layer of the physical world, just bigadol, you zoom out, you abstract it and just take the idea out of it. And the idea is that Hashem created this world out of love. And that actually, and this is really, if you want to get to the crux of the difference between a rationalistic perspective of Judaism to a mystical or Kabbalistic perspective, and this is really the core of it, I've given shiurim on this in the past, who's the giver, who's the taker? From a rationalistic standpoint, God is aloof, needs nothing. God is perfect because conceptually, philosophically, he cannot be God without being absolutely perfect, which means he doesn't need anything. And God created the world just to give to us. And he's the giver and we're the receiver. And in the Zohar, and it takes some theological work to figure out like how this is possible for a perfect God, but it turns out God is at least bound by his desire to show up as needy, kiviyachal, where HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, actually, I need something from you. I need nachas ruach. I need to see a human face. I'm lonely. Hashem needs to be panim b'panim with a yid. Hashem needs us to be mamlechim, to proclaim his sovereignty over the world. Ein melech below am, right? He could not be a king, kiviyachol, right, without Am Yisrael proclaiming him and declaring umalchusa beratzin kibul aleim, that we accept his kingdom and his kingship, his sovereignty over us. And that changes everything, because all of a sudden you're in the driver's seat. It's not like an arbitrary thing. You can, if you so choose, so maybe you'll decide that you'd rather olam hazeh than olam haba. So whatever. So you make that decision and you make a sacrifice. But according to the Baal Shem Tov, every Jew is a soldier. Every Jew is a soldier. And that means that you have much more to give to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in a certain sense than God has to give you. It's a symbiotic relationship. There's a two-way flow. And these are the teachings. Again, we can talk about them from the standpoint of Kabbalah, like how this works, but you can take these ideas and use them to empower every single teen, every single young adult, every single adult, every single, whatever, wherever a person is in life.
Isn't it, with God, they say, first of all, because he's God, he can do anything. So he can put himself in a situation where he's needy because he's God. And then they try to kind of corner him where they say, can God make a rock that he can't pick up? Well, if he can pick it up, then he can't make it.
Right.
And if he can't pick it up, then he's not everything.
Yes.
So what is the answer?
This is exactly that topic. This is exactly that topic. It's the trouble is it's not our topic. I'm sort of just giving a tiny overview, so I don't want to get into that now. I've discussed that a lot in my shiurim on Yichud HaSpodidus, which I give on Monday nights to the women, and so it's all on YouTube where we go into that very deeply in a number of the classes. And I actually literally have a YouTube video called "Can God Create a Rock He Can't Move?" Right. So you'll find the answer, or an answer, a perspective there as well, which I'm happy to send you. But I don't want to get caught up in that this minute. But this is the sugya. But how that is so, how that's reconcilable with rationalism, it's not the topic now. But the Arizal says that it is so. That in whatever sense we're able to handle it, this is the reality. Hashamayim shamayim laHashem, the heavens are heaven for God, v'ha'aretz nasan levnei Adam. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us the world. He gave us the world. Taken to a radical extreme, it literally means that we have to practically get involved in trying to make the world a better place. But not like in this like sweet, cute way of like, do a little kindness. Like really strategizing, like actually sitting and thinking about how we can move the world closer. And there were people who did this. There were tzaddikim who did this. There were great Jewish thinkers and leaders who did this, or at least yearned to do this. And that's also a conversation for a different time.
That's the whole the Rebbe's whole idea.
Exactly.
Acts of goodness and kindness.
Yes.
But also reaching out all over the world to bring
With strategy, with a real strategy, the real strategy. And there's a lot to be said about all this. Every single thing I said so far, I could double click and go on for hours and hours. And it's all important. It's all good. But right now, let's go back. So that's just a little hakdama. We're speaking about now Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel and two different approaches to handling a great light. What do you do with it? Do you keep it to yourself or you use it to inspire others? Okay. Says Rebbe Nassan, this is the last thing we learned last week. What's the reason for Beis Hillel? Why in the Gemara how do we explain Beis Hillel's approach of adding one more each night? Just on a halachic level, the answer is malin b'kodesh ve'emaridin, because you go up in holiness, but you don't go down in holiness. How did Rebbe Nassan interpret that? Not just, okay, obviously, if it's a holy thing, we want more of it, but said Rebbe Nassan, look at the words. And I think Rebbe Zalman, you pointed out this point of malin, like it means malin b'kodesh. What do we do with holiness? We uplift others with holiness. Malin b'kodesh. You use holiness to inspire, to uplift others. Ve'ein ma'ridin doesn't mean you don't decrease in holiness. You don't use the excuse of extra levels of holiness or access to the deepest secrets of Torah to push other people down. Ve'ein ma'ridin. Right? Not that you don't descend in holiness, which is the shita of Beis Shammai, ostensibly, where you start with the 8 and you go down. So Beis Hillel would say, no, what are you going down in holiness? You go up in holiness. Says Beis Hillel, it's much deeper than that. The premise for the shita, that the greater the spiritual light, meaning the greater the miraculous energy, we're lighting more and more and more. What's the premise of that shita? Is that when you have such a thing of holiness, kodesh, ma'alin, you use it to lift other people up. And you don't push people down. And that's what we said. If you look at the Gemara in Shabbos, when the Ger came to Shammai, teach him the whole Torah on 1 foot, what did he do? Maridin. He pushed him away. And Hillel, Adarabah, Hillel uses the deepest secret of Torah, which is V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, right? What you don't like being done to you, don't do to someone else. That's what he told them, is the whole Torah on 1 foot. You know how deep that is? How deep what really? Is that true? Is that true? Right? That the whole entire Torah, the way that we know it, with Egla Rufa, and I'm trying to think of like the furthest, and Ben Saira Myra, and this and that, and all the other things. If you have to the Recha Kamecha, that sounds super Christian. It's like the essence of the law is just, right. Erev Tav. She was a man kasher. What does it have to do? How's that the whole Torah? Tefillin, Tzitzah, Shabbos, Nida, v'chulei. Sukkah, shofar, lulav, ma kasher to the after the Recha Kamecha. So obviously there's so much depth there. And it's a Kabbalistic teaching. It really is. Right? Otherwise, figure out what's the most important halacha that he should keep today if he's only going to keep one halacha. Right? Because that's what Hillel's using the secrets of Torah to teach him. You know what the essence of the whole thing is? Goes back to what I just said from the Arizal. That whereas rationalism would see a very technical, almost detached relationship with the divine, where God is perfect and God just gives us out of his love and goodness, says Hillel, drawing on the tradition of mysticism, the whole essence of the Torah is madalach senei, that you don't like things that you need not being given to you. That's what the British verse, I'm not making this up, you see it in Kedushas Levi. Madalach senei lechavrich to Hashem loisavid. So if you don't like when you need something and people don't give it to you, so how could you withhold from God what God needs? This is what Hillel told him. That's the essence of the whole Torah. You're needed. You're needed. God needs you. V'ahavta l're'acha kamoicha. So treat God like you would want to be treated. This is what Hillel says. That's Kabbalah. That's the essence of that is in the Zohar HaKadosh, where Hashem becomes so vulnerable. Chassidus is all about vulnerability.
That's what does the man mean?
There you go.
When we are close.
Exactly. Hashem is referring to us as his friend, as his brother. Utruas melech boy, right? Bilam says. And if you look in Rashi there, it says the friendship of the king is with this people. Why friendship of the king? Because what did we just say about the king? That's the place where God is vulnerable. Because God could not be a king without us accepting him to be a king. So it's the friendship of the king. Because it's in his malchus. We're not getting into the Kabbalah now. And I'm telling you, this is not our topic so much. Obviously, whatever's coming down this is what we're supposed to talk about. It's a huge topic. It's in the malchus of HaKadosh Baruch Hu where he is kiviyachol deficient. The malchus. That's where there's a position for us to step in and to complete something kiviyachol that otherwise would be in some sense, and it would take a long time to explain this now, right? Which is this question that would have been otherwise incomplete, which is even true about a perfect God, right? And so obviously it's a big conversation. How do you reconcile the two? And there are ways of reconciling the two, but it's not for now. Okay, good. That's what we learned last time. Let's look back inside. Yeah, sure.
Because I was just reading like sort of Dan Lechaskus for like again Dan Lechaskus, but for Beis Shammai is that they're really hiding the Hora as well, and Ein Moridin is we cannot bring this down to them. We have to. It's the shit from.
You're saying they also hold Malam HaKodesh for Ein
They
Moridin.
also hold him to be married with Hora in the world.
Beautiful.
But just they're going with that strict approach.
Beautiful.
Hide the Oreganos, which is no longer B'Metzias relevant.
Yes, we're going to see that, and that's by the way why Lost and Love it we paskin like Beis Hillel, right? Because meaning I'm sorry, Beis Shammai.
That was going to be my question. According to this discussion, what is pshat that we paskin like Beis Shammai?
Because Beis Hillel is only relevant for a hospital, right? Beis Hillel is relevant when there's a need. So then there's a need. La'asid Lavai, right? Everyone will be ready. So we won't need the Shita Beis Hillel, right? And without getting into, I'm telling you, Chevra, we can go on big rabbit holes now about Mashiach ben Yosef, Mashiach ben David, right? Yosef and Yehuda, last week's parsha, this week's parsha, right? All the parshiyas now, right, are dealing with this sugya of Mashiach ben Yosef, Mashiach ben David, which is essentially the path of the tzaddik and the path of the Baal Tshuva. We're not getting into all this, but it absolutely connects. This is Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. Beis Hillel, I'll just mention one tiny remez. Oh my gosh, we're gonna have to push off Chanukah this year by 2 months. I'm telling you, we have so much to get to. But
it's an influence, yeah.
So, yeah, Kislev Sheni. So I'll just say one tiny thing because it's amazing. One tiny thing is that Yehuda is the son of Leah. Yosef is the son of Rachel. So that means that whatever distinction we're going to find in Yosef and Yehuda, which manifest much later on in history, and really the secret is throughout history, because the coming of Mashiach is not an event, it's a long process that's in full swing, which is a huge shift as well, that the tzaddikim are teaching us. It starts, not Mashiach ben David, Mashiach ben Yosef, it starts in Rachel and Leah, and what they represent. And in the Zohar HaKadosh, Rachel is called Alma de Iskalia. Rachel is called the world that's revealed. And that's why she's very beautiful. Externally, you can see the beauty. Rachel, everything is externalized. Everything is revealed. The Alma de Iskalia. Leah is called the Alma de Iskasia. Leah is hidden. Leah is hidden. The path of the Baal Tshuva is rooted in a world of hiddenness, a world of all different kinds of processes that are not according to protocol. Like, there needs to be a revelation from a place of what's called chanina, which has everything to do with Chanukah, which the Bnei Yissaschar talks about also, not in that piece, but in a different piece. Hashem says, I'm going to be graceful, provide grace to whoever. I shall extend grace. And the Medrash comments that there is to HaKadosh Baruch Hu something called an oitzer matnas chinam. There's a treasury of unearned gifts. Rabbi Nachman speaks about this. That's for the ra'oi and the ein ra'oi. That's has nothing to do with whether you're deserving or not. Flows forth. Now that is something different than the standard midas hadin sort of system of earning, not earning, deserving, not deserving. That's the standard template. So you have to understand Hillel, which is the shita of Mashiach ben David, which is the shita of the Baal Tshuva, which is the shita of Leah, is not according to protocol. You skip madregas, right? You take the deepest teachings, like I said before. It's not the standard understanding of like, okay, you check in a Baal Tshuva yeshiva, you start with level 1, and you proceed to level 2, and then to level 3, and so on. And that makes sense, right? That makes sense. But the sheet of Hillel is like sometimes you need an infusion. Sometimes you need a IV drip. Sometimes we can't wait. We have to save a person, and that's the path of Leah, which is not the regular Rachel-oriented, everything's revealed and it makes sense on paper, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. It's non-linear. In fact, it's circular, but that's a whole other conversation. It's not linear. The path of the tzaddik is linear, right? Everything is clear. Point A leads to point B, and you go in one direction only. That makes sense. Everybody could understand that. That's called Alma Galia. It's revealed beauty. Everybody knows. Okay, this is a tzaddik. Yes, he sat and he learned the whole Tanakh, and then he learned Shisha Mishnah, and then he learned the whole Shas, and then he learned the whole Zayar, and then he learned the whole Kisveri, and Midrashim, and Sifra Sifri, and everything, and is a person who progressed from level to level to level to level. Beautiful. That's a tzaddik. That's Rachel. Right? That's Yosef. And that's Mashiach ben Yosef, where Yosef doesn't sin. Right? Yosef, last week's parasha, is in a terrible nisayon, but he emerges unscathed. But the path of the Baal Tshuva is non-linear. It doesn't go from one place, from point A to point B. It's one step forward, 2 steps back, a couple steps to the side. It's a dance, isn't it? Right? It's a dance. It's not walking. It's a bit of a dance. It's all over. And that's why the Hora is like the most Jewish dance in the world, Without getting to the depth of the Hora now, it's very deep. Because it's in a circle. And it's always 2 steps forward and 1 step back. Then you go forward a little bit and you go back. Then you go forward a little bit and back. And this is so deep. This is so deep. This also, I know you're going to think it sounds silly, but there's nothing silly in the world. This is why Jews are so connected to bagels. You think it's funny? It's very deep. Very deep. That the classic quintessential Jewish food is a bagel, because it has to do with circles. It also has to do with why, and it's not just any circle. I'm not going to go into the depth of a bagel now. You'll look it up, you'll see, I know it sounds crazy. You'll look it up in geometry, the shape of a bagel is actually called a torus. Torus. It's a fantastic shape. It's a fantastic shape. Of course it's connected to Torah. Yeah, Torah, Torus. And it's also the shape of the donuts, in Chanukah, of course. It's very, very connected. And it's very deep. I'm not going to get into this now because it's a huge, all these things. It's one of the kavanas to have. You have in mind that Taurus is maybe the most important shape in spirituality because it represents absolute unity. Because in a Taurus, you think of a bagel, I don't know why I'm telling you, we had so much, but it is what it is. What are you going to do? This is what's coming down. Oh, but it's much deeper than that. Because that's true. But then a circle is deep, right? And a circle is deep. It's infinite. It just goes around. There's no beginning. There's no end. And that's Hashem. Ani Rishon, Ani Acharon. Like it's just me. And it's all circular. But a torus, which is a bagel or a donut, it's much deeper. Because in a torus, what are the basic frameworks of duality? You have up and down. You have in and out, right? Essentially. Right, and those are any geometric shape. You're going to have those dynamics. Right? It's otherwise it's not a 3-dimensional shape. It has to be up and down, and then there's inside and outside. Right, and that's what makes a 3-dimensional shape. If you imagine for a second, this is an incredibly deep meditation. I'm not going into this now. It's a huge sugya, huge. It's a huge sugya. It has to do with the Evan Shasiya. If you imagine a bagel shape, but imagine that the shape is made out of energy. Okay, so it's not a solid bagel or a donut. It's made out of energy, and the energy is flowing as follows. You ready? Think about the top of the donut closest to the hole. Now imagine energy flowing downward.
It's like a sphere.
Listen carefully. Imagine the energy is flowing downward through the hole. Where does it come out? On the bottom. And it flows out, and then it flows through on all sides. The torus, up and down is the same, in and out is the same. It's absolute achdus. And actually, the way to get a torus, right, how do you get that shape, is if you take one piece of paper. It's difficult to do with an actual piece of paper for physical reasons. You have to use a special kind of material. You fold it up around, and you turn the paper all the way around, right? So with a regular paper, it gets all scrunched, right? So you can't actually do it, so you have to manufacture it. But it's one sheet of paper. It's just one thing. It's one entity that then becomes this incredible shape where it looks like there's up and down and in and out, and it's just one thing. This is the secret of Elokus, of Memalik kol almin v'soiviv kol almin. Memalik kol almin is the inside of the donut. Soiviv kol almin is the outside of the donut. It's all one. It's all one. This is why the Jews are known for bagels. Amish. There's nothing stam in this world. The bagel is the deepest thing. The donut is even deeper. It is. You have a big kavanah. You're holding a donut. One second. I just want to finish this thought. Right? Donuts and bagels. I'm getting hungry already just thinking about it. The Hora. In a circle. So trying to track it. Okay, donuts, bagels, the Hora. And this is the Jewish dance. It's circular. There's just everything is equidistant from the center. There's no one farther or closer. Who knows anything? It's chaos. It's holy chaos. It's infinity. That's Beis Hillel. Hillel is Rosh Tevis, Harofe, L'Shvurei, Lev. Hillel comes for the brokenhearted. Hillel comes for the Bali Tshuva. Hillel comes for the secret of those who have broken hearts, who you would think are the most distant from Hashem, and then paradoxically, Karev Hashem l'nishbrei lev. It's like Hashem is the closest to the people who are brokenhearted. They're not brokenhearted because they lost their job. They're brokenhearted because they're so distant from Hashem. And in their brokenheartedness, it turns out that God is so close to them. That's not Rachel stuff, because that makes no sense on paper. It's the world of Leah. It's the world of the Alma de Escasia, that on the outside it doesn't look so holy, and what do we know? And that's the Shita of Hillel, and that's the Shita of Mashiach ben David, and that's the Shita of the Baal Shem, who is a direct descendant of David, and Rabbi Nachman, who is a direct descendant of the Baal Shem, and the Arizal, who is a direct descendant of David, through Rashi. It's interesting. And all the tzaddikim that were speaking this language were part of that tradition. And so for them, there was no step 1, step 2, step 3. For them, it was like you had to fight chaos with chaos. You had to fight fire with fire. Mamish, the deepest, the deepest fire of Chanukah, the greatest gilui, the greatest revelation of nisim l'malam and ateva, of like, this is God's world, but it's really God's world. Not like we say it and we read books about it. It's God's world. You understand that? You understand that this whole place is mamish saturated with godliness. There's nothing else. We think we're in the world. Where's the world and the galaxy? Where's the galaxy and the universe? Where's the universe? Ever think about that? Where is the universe? Like, where we don't know anything. What location? Ki'ilu, we have identified where we are. We don't know where we are. We don't know what the heck this is. Toila Eretz al Blima. The whole world is hanging on nothing. Nothing. That's the light of Chanukah. I know, it's like, but we say all the words, but until it actually hits you, and you start to be like, wait a second, what is this life? 99.99999% of people go through their whole life and never actually stop to consider. And in the tradition of a class that we gave, I think 3 weeks ago now, when we spoke about the seekers. You remember? That had to do with the candles, chipos bener. And we said over there on a more microcosmic level that the people who are born into Hasidus have it the least, because they think that they have a Rebbe, and that's good, so check the box because this is it. It's possible that they have it the least. I was looking at a video yesterday. They had a certain yard site for a certain Hasidus. Thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands. I mean, it was so shocking. In one tent, they fit tens of thousands of people in one tent. So they're all card-carrying members of that particular sect. It is impossible that they all have a personal relationship with the Rebbe. It is not possible, right? Maybe you want to tell me that one time you met the Rebbe. Even that, I just don't see how it's feasible. I don't see how it's feasible. But a relationship with him, it's impossible. It is absolutely impossible. What was the whole thing of a Rebbe? It should be a soul master, a soul doctor. How are you gonna have soul medicine from a doctor that you never ever 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 see in any substantial way? So it becomes a factory, right? And sometimes, and this was the Nesivos Shalom says about Chanukah. He says, why is it that of all of the 4 galuyos, Rome, Roimi, Bavel, Yavan, Madai, that are referenced in the very, very first Pesukim in Bereshis, as the Medrash Tanchuma tells us, V'ha'aretz haisa sayu v'vayu v'choshech al panei sahaim. Right, so these 4 things already primordially, it's in the Zohar HaKadosh as well. Tayu, vayu, choshech, sahaim is the earliest root already for the 4 exiles that we're going to be in. It says in Nesivos Shalom, do you know which one is Yavan? Choshech. Choshech, zu Yavan. Yavan, Greece, Syrian Greece, is Choshech, darkness. It says in Nesivos Shalom. Yavan was terrible. But if you had to choose one of the 4, exiles that was connected to darkness, you would think for sure Galus Edom, which is all about materialism, physicality, just no intellect at all, just pure physical gratification, like what we're in now, very much. That's Choshech. Yavan, at least, again, on their level, but they were philosophers. At least they were thinking about the big questions. At least they understood there's more to life than actually meets the eye. Okay, what they valued is physical beauty, but it was beauty abstracted out of a concept. Like they reflected on what actually matters in this world. But at least they thought, Yafta likim liyefes. There's beauty in Yavan. It's a beautiful thing. Greek is a beautiful language, and so on and so forth. Choshech zu Yavan, says the Nesivos Shalom. You know why? Listen to this. So painful and powerful. Says the Nesivos Shalom, there is no greater darkness than a little bit of light. A little bit of light is the greatest darkness. You know why? Because when a person's sitting in darkness and they know they're sitting in darkness, so then there's hope. They want to change. They know that, this is not where it's at. They're seeking, they're chipos beneris, they're trying to get somewhere. But when a person has just enough light to keep them satisfied, so then tragedy of tragedies, because they stop seeking. And what we mentioned in a certain way relating to like Chasidusin, right, which is not a blanket statement on every single Chassid and every single Chasidus, but it's a blanket enough statement, I think, can be said with some certainty, that this is an issue, this is a problem, because it becomes a culture, is also true collectively about all Jews, all Yidden. Because we have a Gemara, and we have a Shulchan Aruch, and we have mitzvahs, and we have Daf Yomi, and we have 3 tefillas a day, and we can mamish settle, and most people settle. They never stop to actually think what they're doing, because why should they think what they're doing? It's beautiful. They're going to get into Olam Haba. They know how to read a piece of Gemara. If they do, they don't, but they know at least, what they're supposed to be doing, when they're supposed to be doing it, where they're supposed to be doing it, how they're supposed to be doing it, and zeh. And that's the greatest darkness sometimes. That's a greater darkness, again, bebechina mesuyamet, in a certain sense, than people who have nothing at all. Because the Baalei Tshuva, people who wake up and they come with fire and idealism, and they're seeking and they're looking and there's no limit to where they can get, because they're mamish coming. Nebuch, right? Nebuch. Choshech su Yavan. That's the darkness of Greece. That's really the darkness of Galus Yavan. Is to settle for a little bit of light. To settle. Okay.
Can I just have very
Yeah. Yeah, sure.
First of all, is Shammai from Yosef HaTzadik? Do we know who Shammai comes from?
I don't know if we know. I don't know.
Okay, but just a few thoughts that came to my mind. First of all, Yosef is called Yosef HaTzadik, right? The Tzadik from Rachel. Yehuda is about Tshuva.
Sure.
He did that, and he
Of course.
did his whole life.
Yeah, in the same parsha, right? Yosef is clearly the one who doesn't sin. Yehuda is the one who has to say, it has to be Maida, right? Sadka mimeni.
He's doing Tshuva, and Moshe Rabbeinu is the one who has to save him.
Right.
It's the same as Rus. It's the same.
Nachon. Nachon. And it goes even further back, because it really starts with light. It really starts with light and his daughters. Right? Matzasi David Avdi. Heichon Matzasi b'Sedoi. Right? Because he comes from Rus, from Moav.
And then, if you look about
Yeah.
So Shammai, he's also the tzaddik. He's righteous, whereas Hillel comes from nowhere. He comes from Babylon thing. He's too poor to learn, and all of a sudden, from nothing, he comes and he becomes the leader.
That's his own. It's his own story.
You
Beautiful.
said something.
Haroife l'nishbari lev.
He was
I'm sorry. Haroife l'shbari lev. Yeah.
And that is the Mashiach. And another thought, the original name that the Balatanya, we just came for it, that he thought for the Chassidim was Baalei Tshuva. That was the name he wanted, was Baalei Tshuva.
Halavai, he would have given that name.
Was that everyone, he said, Mashiach is coming, Tzadikaya b'Tshuva. We all should be doing Tshuva. Every day should be like a new experience trying to grow. And it was the Misnagdim who actually named them Chassidim. Yalzu Chassidim Mechaved. And they used to make fun. Yalzu Chassidim Mechaved.
Interesting. Fascinating.
And final thought.
Yeah.
That possibly Shammai, when you said it, Mali Makoidish Volim Meridin, they say no, you have to bring up, because for them the top is the oil. That is the priority. So Mali Makoidish, we only uplift with this light, but we're not going to give this light and possibly dirty this light by bringing it. Whereas Hillel says, no, the highest priority is the Jew. So we use this light, whatever it means, to uplift the Jew.
Beautiful, beautiful. What's more ikari? Amazing.
Yeah, and that's
amazing. And that's the piece that you should know.
Light, and
beautiful.
Hillel is about the Jew.
Absolutely beautiful. The Piaseczner Rebbe writes in Derech HaMelech, he says an amazing thing. He says many amazing things. But he says an amazing thing on this topic. And it could be, now that you're saying, it comes from Kadmonim and Chassidus before him. But he says that the whole world thinks that because there are 600,000 letters in the Torah, so that's where the Jewish souls are rooted in the 6,000 letters of the Torah. He says, no. He says, because there are 600,000 root souls of the Jewish nation, that's why there are 600,000 letters in the Torah. Which is rooted in which? And that's like Rav Zami is saying. It's this is which one takes precedence? What is for what? And the Baal Shem Tov changed the whole thing around, and it was just the preciousness of Am Yisrael, of every single Jew. And how but it goes together, preciousness goes together with power. Value is a better word. The value of every Jew. We can't leave any Jew by the wayside. This idea of setting up a system that maybe, out of the way that we set this up, so then we'll get like 10% who will really excel, and that's what it's for, and everybody else sort of falls through one crack or another. Can't be. Can't be. Yeah, essentially, seems to be. And so that's the whole thing of Hillel. Okay, we have to read at least a little bit. Oh my gosh. Okay, so he says, Ki loy kein hu, ki tzarach lias ma'ala mekadosh v'loy maridin. It has to be, you have to lift up with Kedusha, not to push down. The deeper a person, or the higher a person rises in perceptions, you have to figure out and strategize. Figure out new vessels, figure out new kalim. Right, with awesome strategies, until you can bring more and more and more people and to heal. Do we think about care of like healing? Or do we think about care of like signing another guy up, Healing, like we're trying to really heal souls. Do we have a Judaism that heals? Does our Judaism heal? Maybe it educates, maybe it like provides structure, it uplifts. But we have to change the way that we look at what Judaism is supposed to be. It's supposed to heal us. Medicine. Tefillin is medicine? What do you mean tefillin is medicine? I'm not sick, right? That's the biggest sickness in the world. If tefillin, a little bit of light, if tefillin is medicine, so gaval, like maybe there's a part of me that's not quite there. But how could I not be quite there? I put on tefillin every morning. It's like, and this is, and it's revelatory. This is part of what the Baal Shem Tov was bringing to the world. No, tefillin is medicine. Tzitz is a different kind of medicine. So we need every bit of kedusha we could get. We have to understand, in relation to what we could be and where we're at, and etc. It's like we need help. We mamish need it. We need it, and we can have it. But it depends how we engage with tefillin, how we engage with tzitzis, and so on. So we have to heal even those who are very sick. This is all wrapped up into the symbol and the depth of what it means. Where again, we're lighting it specifically below 10 tefachim, very low down to the ground, because that's the great light that's so deep that could reach those people. Such Hillel, great, use it. Every night of Chanukah the miracle gets deeper. Use it to inspire others. Malin b'kodesh, lift people up. Okay, now let's start the shiur. You ready? This is the secret of Bikur Chaylim, of visiting sick people. Everybody should be healthy and well. It says it's important to show up and visit a person who's all alone, a person who's sick, a person who's suffering. To smile at the person, to shine your face at the person. We go in, we take care of the things that the person needs, as it's laid out in the halachas of Bikur Chaylim. Right? It isn't simply just go and show up. There are things to do. You have to make sure, look after the person, care for the person. What does the person need? This is an aspect of a shining face. Right? Because the opposite of Bikur Chaylim would be to conceal your face, meaning you're not showing up, right? You're not showing your face, right? But Bikur Chaylim means you show up and you're masbir panim. You're not hiding away in your home. You come out to shiurim. It's like I'm a little bit, me personally, I'm a little bit of a chayla. It's like, I need Bikur Chaylim, come learn with me. I shouldn't be all alone in the world, I have to have good chaverim who are. So you come out, you're not hiding your house. You come out to a shiur, unbelievable. And you come, and it applies to those on the Zoom also. I'm not speaking to people on the Zoom, you're in your home, I don't mean you. That's also good, You're not hiding, you're in your house, but you're not hiding. But to be hidden in your house, that's a different thing. Right, and you take care of the person. She calls it you're shining your face, your holy face. And you bring that person life. Mamish, if you were ever ill, chas v'shalom, but if you're really ill, someone comes to visit you, brings life to the person. When there's ar pnei, when there's a light of a person's face, melech chayim. You make a person feel like a king, you bring them to life, you give them dignity. Yeah? And he's just basically commenting on what Rabbi Nachman says in the lesson in Likutei Moharan that this whole teaching is based on. Therefore, that's why the Gemara in Shabbos tells us the Shechina hovers over the bed of a sick person. Hashem sustains the person who's sick, who's laying on a woeful bed, on a bed that's full of misery. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is there with the person in their suffering. It's specifically because this person is ill. You would say, oh, such a sick person, what does God have to do with a sick person? Let God rest on a chacham, gibar, ashir, prophets. So he says, no. If a person is ill, he needs God most. And God is going to be found by that. It's the same dynamic. Greater the pit, greater the light, right? And that's the Shita of Hillel, right? Haroife l'shvurei lev. The person who has a broken heart, haroife, beautiful. Haroife l'shvurei lev, right? He's healing the chayla. This is the light of the tzaddik. That these are the tzaddikim, the arzurat tzaddik, the light of the faith of Chanukah, that don't hide away from the people that need them the most. They find them and they find a way to reach them. And specifically on those who are the sickest. His whole life is turned upside down because of the illness. The Baal Shem Tov, all these tzaddikim, they would spend the most time with the simplest Amaratzim, the simplest Jews who needed the love the most, who felt pushed down, who felt criticized, who felt detached from God by all the great big Talmudists who were going around flaunting their intellect. And what about the simple Jew? What about a person who's disconnected? I'm sorry. Let's. Yeah, can we? Unless it's like mamash urgent.
No, I'm just wondering the word mefakech b'yosef. I heard that. Okay.
Yeah, mefakech, like pkach enecha or right? To look to.
No, but it's a word used in Mishnah. It's always when someone is a whole house has fallen on top of someone.
Yeah, mefakech et hagal. Yeah.
We open it and we go through.
Nachon. That's it.
Here, in a certain way, the sickest person, you do anything and mefakech with
beautiful.
Pikres.
Beautiful. Also pikres, beautiful. To draw down healing down to that person, to bring that person, whether physically or spiritually, to bring them to life. And even to find a way again to bring to them the deepest secrets of the Torah, which is Kabbalah. The greater the tzaddik, the deeper the pit, the sicker the people. And that's why people say about Uman, I've said this in the past, it's like all the crazies are in Uman, all these weird people dancing on, and you say, Nebuch, a person, imagine, goes into a building and he says, oh my gosh, this building is full of sick people. And you say, well, sure it is, because it's a hospital. Uman is a hospital. So of course, if he's the greatest doctor in the world, you're going to find people, all kind of interesting people, because he's the only tzaddik who could reach them. So what are you going to do? That it's a hospital. So that's why you have all kinds of interesting people. Of course, right? So this is how it goes. This is what the tzaddik does. He goes to the sickest people. Because he's so ill, and because his whole life has been turned upside down, so the Shekhinah comes to that person and hovers above that person. This is the light of the tzaddik. Because the tzaddikim, like we said, you remember we said last week, Rashbi, he said, his es panei adin Hashem, the face of God, and Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai said, this is Rashbi. The tzaddikim are reflecting the presence of the divine, right? And we had shiurim, right? Because they empty themselves out, and it's a channel. They're not in it for themselves. They don't have any shred of self. There is no self. They're on a mission. They're so bottled to the mission that the light of God is shining through them, absolutely shining through them. That's a real tzaddik. Batal. I heard from my Rebbe, Tzvi Cheshen, I'll just mention very quickly in this context, there's a Gemara in Shabbos that wants to know, for various halachic considerations, how tall a tree is. How do you know how tall a tree is? So Gemara wants to know, how do you measure a tree? Let's say it's super duper tall. Before modern technology, they had a way to get up there and measure it with lasers or different things, how they measure trees. You know what it says? You measure the shadow of the tree. Because you can't get all the way to the top of the tree to measure it, but you can measure the shadow. So you wait until the sun is perfectly positioned in a way where it's going to cast the full length of the shadow of the tree. You can measure the shadow.
Is the shadow the same?
No, it might not be exactly the same, but at least it will have some formula, whatever it is, to figure out that if that's how tall this thing is, so that's the length of the shadow that it will produce at this particular time of the day. Says Tzvi Cheshen, it's the same with tzaddikim. The tzaddikim are called the eights, right? Ki adam eitz hasada. The tzaddikim are called the eights, right? Tzaddik katamar yifrach, right? The tzaddik is like a tamar, is like a tree. Beautiful. And other psukim as well, right? The tzaddik is a tree. Said Tzvi Cheshen, you want to know how to measure the greatness of a tzaddik?
How many people are under his shadow?
You measure, not just under his shadow, you measure the shadow of that tzaddik. You measure the dark side, you know. So there's all the tzaddikim in Breslov. It's beautiful, but I want to know about the shadow of Breslov, like all the iffy folk and people who are not so, you don't know, and the greater the shadow, meaning the greater the apparent wickedness of the kind of people that are attracted to a tzaddik, the greater that is. To the contrary, this is demonstrating to us the height and the power and the strength of that tzaddik. And a lot of people think it's the opposite. Oh, if this is, who Rabbi Nachman's Chassidim are, so what does that tell you about Rabbi Nachman? Please, what kind of Rebbe was he? You see, Adarabba, Adarabba. If a tzaddik has that level of darkness around him, so then it's only because he's that much taller. It's the same concept, because the light is coming from such an elevated place. It's able to reach people that nothing else is able to reach. People who have given up, They've been through the midlife crisis and every kind of crisis, and then they find the pamphlet. That's like the most cliche stuff in the world that everybody thinks they know. But there's a difference when your heart is broken, because your heart is broken open. When your heart is broken open, then there's room for things to go in. Then you have what's called a breslov or lave, a lave basar. It's a heart of flesh. It means it's not a stone. It's not impenetrable. It's malleable. Okay, so let's go just a little bit further. 2 minutes left. That's the pasuk that says Vayera elav Hashem. Being in Parshas Vayera, Hashem appeared to him. Say Chazal levakar sachayla, to visit the sick. How does Rashi know that? Ki daika machma shehu choyle utzrichim levakar al yedei zad daika vayera elav Hashem. Because Hashem appears to a person when the person needs Hashem to appear to the person. And the sicker the person, the greater the light of Hashem that's revealed to them, in order to wake them up, in order to reach them, in order to inspire them. And this is the job of the greatest tzaddik, is to bring this kind of light of faith to people and hope. This is Chanukah and Purim, that are connected to the mitzvah of Bikur Chaylim. Because Chanukah and Purim are extraordinarily holy days, but they both fall out on regular, mundane weekdays, where a person can have their phone in their pocket and be at work and whatever. Because they are not days upon which work, malacha, is forbidden. They, specifically because they're lower down, so for example in the sphere, so they're getting into this now, Chesed Gvur Tiferes is Pesach, in certain ways Shavuos and Sukkos, right? Pesach, Shavuos and Sukkos. Netzach and Hod, which are the lower energies, are Chanukah and Purim, right? Netzach is Shuasam Hayisa LaNetzach, so Purim is Netzach, and Hod is the special glow of Chanukah. That's, if you want to know the spiritual root of these Chagim, right? Aaron HaKohen. Netzach and Hod is Chanukah and Purim. Do you know what part of the body Netzach and Hod relate to? Your feet, your legs. It's the lowest part of the body. They go all the way down to the feet. Acha tichla regel manashok. Beautiful. Reglayim, because it has to do with the regalim.
You know what? Regel the Talmudoi.
Yeah.
The letters Moirdim.
Mordim. Talmudoi.
It's the furthest away.
Chanukah and Purim are low. They're low down. They're low, right? They're not holy days, regular weekdays, winter break, New Year's Eve. The other one. Low days. Says Reb Nosson, dafka, because they're chaylim, and we are chaylim in relation to these days, both of which, for example, were galus, yamim tovim, that were instituted not by the Torah Shabbat, but Torah Shabbat Peh. It's like we straggled it together because funi l'dairis. The whole thing, Chanukah and Purim. Says Reb Nosson, other chaylim, Bikur chaylim. Bikur chaylim. Because Avraham Avinu was a chayla from the bris, Vayera elav Hashem. There's the greatest light of Ruchnias that's shining on Chanukah and Purim that you don't find, in a certain sense, right? Each Yom Tov has its thing. even on Purim, even on Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot, the Shalosh Regalim. These are the Shtei Regalim. Shalosh Regalim, something else. These are the two regalim. Let's just finish it. I'm sorry. Let's just finish it. Okay. And he gives an example. When a person is healthy, the king doesn't come to your house because the person's healthy. You go to him. You want to go see the king or the Rebbe. It's the same thing. It's a different thing. You take a good shower, you change your clothes, you put on an eyeliner or whatever it is, and you go and you visit the palace. You go to the king. And you beg the people out there guarding the doorway. You should have the privilege to go in. You figure out a way to strategize to be able to visit the king. And then in accordance with your madriga, whether you'll be allowed into the external chamber, or the courtyard, or into the house, or into the inner chamber, so you should be able to see and benefit from the face of the king. But when one of the people of the king is sick, is laying on his sick bed, when the mercy of the king is awoken, that he wants to heal this person, shine the presence of his face to this person. The king goes to his house to be there with that person. So I'm just going to speak out outside the next bit. It's so good to sit inside. I'm telling you, there's so much here. I wish we could just sit and just learn. There's nothing else to do. Where are we going? Okay, the point happens to be that I'm going now to learn also. But where are we going? Like, where are you rushing, Bichlal? Like, there's nothing else to do in life unless you have really different things that are absolutely urgent. We should sit and we should learn, but we should learn together. Where do we get this business? A shiur has to be an hour. Who said? We sit and just bask. It's Gan Eden. It's everything going to be doing in Olam Haba forever and ever and ever anyway. Where are we rushing, Anyway. Halavai.
We get it from Tov Sha'achas.
But
We get it from Tov Sha'achas.
Yafa Sha'achas, yeah. So just outside very quickly, he says that the Shalosh Regalim, Aliyah L'Regel, were healthy enough that we go up to the king. That's Aliyah L'Regel, as we go to him. He says, Chanukah and Purim is Bikur Chaylim. God comes to you. He says, you read a L'Regel.
Who says that?
Reb Nassan. This is the next few paragraphs. We're not going to have time to learn it now. We'll learn it Be'ez Hashem next week on the Zoom. But let me just clarify this. That means we have to understand that there's even more than the kings in the field. The kings in the field, you still have to go out to him. All right, so there's Har, Sadeh, Bayis, right? Avram called the place of the Beis HaMikdash a mountain. It's Gemara Pesachim. Yitzchak called it a field. Yaakov called it a Bayis. You can say based on this that Shalosh Regalim is the Har. It's Avram Avinu. Elul is the Sadeh, right? That's Yitzchak Avinu. You want to know what the Bayis is? Chanukah and Purim. Hashem comes to your own home. Don't need to go anywhere. You sit in your home, and the home means with all of your stuff and all of your challenges and all the uneven parts of life that you don't quite know where they fit, and the confusions and the complications and the frustrations and all the stuff. Hashem's light is shining there, and not just any light of Hashem, like Hashem sends some low-ranking individual. No, it's the highest gilui there is, because the deeper the pit, the greater the light. Chaver, this is Chanukah. What percentage of people do you think know this at all? Any of it? Like, no one. And then they say, no, that the basics is the halacha, I don't know, this is the basics, this is Chanukah. And then you learn the halacha, but the halacha is like sort of the vessel for this. But if we don't have this and all we have is dry laws that I know how to do this and this, how is that helpful? How is that helpful? Rachmana liba boy, Hashem wants your heart. Hashem wants a Yiddish guy that's bursting with real presence and spirit and soul and passion. And otherwise, we're just ticking boxes. Hashem should bless us, Be'ezras Hashem. We're not going to see each other before Chanukah. That it should mamish be. We should maybe take the sheets with you. You'll glance it over. Maybe Erev Chanukah, you take an hour and you just sort of speed read and go through it, review some of the major topics.
On the first day of Chanukah, Katzmach, no word.
Also, yeah, but learning. Okay, but that's Nital Nacht. But the point is, we have to finish now. The point is, we should go into the lighting of the Chanukah candles this year with consciousness, with das, with awareness. What are we doing? What is the flame? What is the candle? What is the Shita? Ready, second night, you're going to see already Shita's Hillel. Oh, first night, right? Shita's Hillel. Why are you starting with 1 and not 8? Oh, because you're going up. What does that mean? What does that mean for us in our own lives as we look toward other Jews who are less, etc., etc., etc.? And for our own selves, where do we need to seek to find what we need to heal our souls? The deepest, deepest secrets of the Torah. And to find the tzaddikim who knew how to give those to us in their wondrous ways, through their eitzos, their advice, through their stories, through their mishalim, their parables, through their simple directives that if we just do them, absolutely transform our lives and change us mikatze ala katze from one extreme to the other extreme. Hashem should bless us. We should be zeiche to a Chanukah that's really filled with real light, real light, the light of Hashem's presence, the light of faith, ba'ar pnei melech Chaim be'ezus Hashem. A freilichen, lichtigen Chanukah to everybody. Thank you so much, everyone who is here. Thank you, everybody who's on this Zoom. Ashreinu. Oh, it's so by design. You have no idea. All of it is by design. I'm telling you. Unbelievable. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Yidden. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yes. Stay on the Zoom if you can, just for one more second. This is really important, so they tell me. It's not really my thing, but this is what I have to do. But Ezra Hashem, next Sunday evening, we are having a fundraising campaign for Eilecha. If anybody who is on the Zoom or anybody who's in person has benefited from the shiurim, this is just a tiny little snippet of the work that Baruch Hashem we've been zocheh to do over the last 2.5 years here in London, in Manchester, in Gateshead even. And all the shiurim get uploaded online. There are hundreds of people around the world who are listening to the shiurim, following them along. And this, tonight, it's really in every shiur that I try to give over like the point, it's just in different garments. But really we're trying to bring the soul back to Judaism. And it's not just as it relates to Judaism, because it's a core issue that all the other problems that we're dealing with are really in one way or another symptoms of this. The tuition crisis, I was watching a clip somebody posted, terrible tuition crisis, crazy. People are mamish killing themselves. In some cases, literally, Rahman al-Islam, because of the financial pressures of being a frum Jew. And what's the solution? He says, when the Rabbanim will get really strict with their people, and the people will listen, the ki'ilu. Like, that's not, I'm sorry, God bless him. That's not what it is. We need a hashkafic shift. It has nothing to do with the Rabbanim making more, it has to do with us identifying as an neshama and not a guf. And if you could do that, you're going to spend less on the ostentatiousness of whatever kind of bar mitzvah that you think you need to make to impress the neighbor, etc., etc. Please, it has nothing to do with, a top-down, We need a shift in this community. We need an absolute shift, and then you'll see how all the different things resolve. They resolve. Will life be perfect? Life will never be perfect, but we are self-inflicting these wounds, I promise you. And so this is my tiny, humble effort. It's still very small. We want to grow. We want to reach more people. We want to strategize to figure out how to reach more people. Tachbulas, you have to strategize, and we can use your support. So if you would like to support and to partner and to join, and if you believe in this mission, if you want to be a part of it, please do get involved. And I don't know how you'll find the link, but hopefully you'll find a link, or Edgar will make sure that you get the link, and he'll hound you for 2 days. And let's do it. Let's do it together. Let's mamish do it together, because it can save lives. It can save lives. Okay. Thank you, Yidden. Yeah. שכל כך אוהב אותי האב שלי מלך חי וקיים על כל נשימה